Hey, what's up, guys? This is episode number 3 of Evolutionary Underground podcast. Um, hey, say what's up, Steve.
What's up, Steve?
So today, we're doing episode number 3 of what is our underground series. It's become a really popular podcast amongst the listeners. Many of you guys contacting us on the forums and on social, asking up follow-up questions. And it's always cool to hear back from everyone. So Evolutionary Underground number 3. Today we're going to talk about orals. We're going to talk about some of those hard to find orals, how to stack oral cycles. See, there's some products, compounds that are only available in oral form, and some that are very useful but very hard to find. So we're going to get into that. We're going to get into what brands out there are carrying some of these and what you guys can look for. One of them that's really interesting that you don't see a lot is Cheque Drops. And Cheque Drops are very androgenic. They give you, I guess, out of all the steroids, is one of the ones that has probably the most effect on your psychology and the way you feel. A lot of guys claim that adding Cheque Drops right before competition makes them quite motivated, makes them kind of gives them that edge, and so it's been a favorite of a lot of competitive guys that want that extra push, androgenic push up to their competition. So one of the brands that's out there that has it, it's called Dragon Pharma, and their product name is called Mibolerone, spelled Mibolerone, Mibolerone. And it's a good product. You don't need a lot of it. And really a pack of, 100 tabs or something, it's going to run you, I don't know, anywhere near between 50 to 60, $70 around that price range. And you don't need a lot to get a decent effect from it. And it's really hard to come by. Not a lot of sources carry Cheque Drops. Local sources that are baking and bathing, making stuff locally, they usually don't carry it. But you get with one of these manufacturers out in Eastern Europe, and those places still make Cheque Drops because there's a lot of powerlifting, a lot of different competitive sports and athletes there that create a huge demand for it still. So that's one product that I think you can only really find in an oral, and it's hard to find. So it's a good brand that has good legit stuff if you are able to find it. What do you got, Steve?
Yeah, and the one from Dragon Pharma that's very, very important on a cycle is going to be Aromasin. And Aromasin isn't the easiest thing to find either. Just like Cheque Drops isn't easy to find with sources. A lot of sources don't even bother to carry Aromasin because it is a little more hard to source. It is pricier than just Arimidex. A lot of doctors out there won't even prescribe Aromasin. Aromasin is the most modern and least side effect aromatase inhibitor. And what it will do, it's the best one because it's a suicide aromatase inhibitor, meaning it will disable the estrogen enzyme right off the bat, so you don't have to worry about rebound. Arimidex is still a good AI to use, but it won't prevent a rebound effect with estrogen. So when you're running something that aromatizes on cycle, a lot of guys run testosterone, right? Everyone says testosterone has to be the base of the cycle. But if you're going to run testosterone at 200, 300, 500, 1,000 milligrams a week, you need to run the Aromasin with it. Otherwise, you're going to open yourself up to gynecomastia, bitch tits. You're going to open yourself up to water retention, bloat, which will lead to high blood pressure, things like insomnia, even erectile dysfunction. And the thing is, if you run too aggressive of an aromatase inhibitor, you can cause issues with crashing your estrogen. You can cause mood changes, depression, loss of erections, loss of libido. So low estrogen isn't good either. So Aromasin is the perfect aromatase inhibitor because it's very gentle on the body. And there are also some, literature out there that shows that Aromasin will actually not crater your IGF-1 in your body. In fact, there's some literature that it will actually increase it. So Aromasin is a number one ancillary that you should be using if you're running something that aromatizes. So very, very important. Not the easiest thing to find. A lot of underground labs out there don't even sell Aromasin anymore. They just sell Arimidex. That's the only ancillary they even bother to sell because it's much cheaper to source for them. And a lot of guys just don't know about Aromasin. A lot of guys, they haven't updated their information. They're stuck in the 90s or 2000s. And unfortunately, they are not doing anyone a favor by recommending Letro or Arimidex should be using Aromasin in 2021.
Definitely very important that your auxiliaries are legit. If you get a cycle of stuff and maybe one of your steroids is not legit, not as bad as maybe your auxiliary, your PCT stuff not being legit. So definitely always go out of your way to get that from a better, more reputable brand. Another good oral that's out there that a lot of guys we don't even talk about is methyl 1-testosterone. Methyl 1-testosterone, it's a very strong, very potent oral. You only need 5 to 10 mgs of it. Some guys will go up as much as 20 mgs, but you don't need that much. It's very strong, very toxic too. You only should use it for about 4 to 6 weeks at 5 to 10 milligrams. And methyl 1-testosterone is a very, very strong product. Dragon Pharma makes this one too. Methyl 1-testosterone is the actual product name. Make it real simple, and not very expensive for 100 tabs or something like that at around 10 mgs, and that might be all you need. You might only want to experiment with 5 mgs for the very first time on this one. You're not going to pay a lot for it. You do want to make sure to, when you take your orals, spread them out throughout the day. So even if you are going to just be doing one 10 mg tab, you break that bitch up. Make sure to take a quarter in the morning, a little quarter early afternoon, quarter late afternoon, quarter nighttime before bed, that sort of stuff. Make sure you get nice even timing on it, which is always a concern with orals. When you use injectables, the lines of how they release into your body and how they break down are pretty even. You can just inject once a week, a couple of times a week, and get decently even line as far as levels. But when it comes to orals, man, they spike and crash throughout the day a couple of times. When you're dosing it, and you got to just make sure to dose it as often as possible. So yeah, methyl 1-test, very good product. 5, 10 mgs, maybe 20 if you're really that hardcore. Most guys, if you got legit product, you're gonna notice you're on something after 10 milligrams. It doesn't aromatize, but it has been known. We think it actually has an effect on progesterone receptors, which can cause you to have suppression and even gynecomastia issues. So unchanged, without its structure changing, it can attach to those receptors, which is the same thing we all theorize about other steroids, like say Anadrol, for instance. That's another one we think does that, but that one, the effective dose is around 50 milligrams per day. When it comes to something like methyl 1-test, you really don't want to really be going above 20 milligrams on this one. Very rare, very hard to find, very strong steroid. One that'd be a good one for you guys to research, and one that'd be going for us to do a good podcast about. I think Steve on the Evolutionary Radio podcast episodes. And yeah, that's the one. That's all I got for that.
Let's kind of get into Alpha Pharma, which is another great brand. Stacking orals. Everyone says, oh, you can't stack orals. But if you stack orals correctly and you stack them smart, there's no difference between stacking 2 orals or doing 1 oral at a higher dosage, right? I mean, that's common sense, right? So here's my view on it. So a cycle that I ran before, it was an oral only cycle. I ran it for 5 or 6 weeks. Great cycle. Turinabol, T-bol, and Dianabol, D-bol. Run each 20 milligrams a day or 25 milligrams a day together. The nice thing about that cycle is that they yin and yang each other. T-bol doesn't aromatize. Dianabol doesn't aromatize. T-bol is a hardener. D-bol does the opposite. T-bol won't increase your appetite. D-bol will. T-bol doesn't do anything for your mood. D-bol will increase your mood. So they're not the same steroid, but they have the opposite benefits. So if you combine them at a lower dosage, you can get a really good cycle out of it. And you don't necessarily need to worry about running an aromatase inhibitor. It's been in my experience. It's always good to keep one on hand, but it's been in my experience. So 5 or 6 weeks, guys, really simple, 20 milligrams each a day. That's it. And you don't need to worry about injecting. You don't have to worry about needles. You don't have to worry about your kid finding it, your wife finding it, your boyfriend finding it, whatever. Just run them both together. You're good to go. So that's a really good oral only stack that you can do together. And, you know, in the future, if you wanted to use injectables, you could stack them and an injectable on top of it. But in this podcast, we're just talking about oral. So in this situation, I think it's a great option to do that oral. So those two orals stack really good together because they yin and yang. So stacking steroids, there's a method to the madness. So I'll get into more of that also later in this podcast. What else we can stack?
One good one that is a very different oral than most of anything that's out there is oral Trenbolone, methyltrianolone. And it's so powerful. You really only need to take between 250 micrograms to 750 micrograms, guys. You got that right. A good brand out there, again, Geneza Pharma, methyltrianolone. They come in little 250 microgram tabs, and you only need to take maybe one split couple times during the day, split it twice. If you're trying it for the first time, if you're familiar with it, no, you can handle it. No, you're taking some liver support. You know, I make a liver support product for you guys. N2Guard. Go to N2Guard.com. N2Guard. Liver support product. Scott Tutka has milk thistle, has pretty much all the prickly leaf, all the stuff you really need when you're a steroid user and you're concerned about your liver. So make sure to use that. And if you're trying out Trend, you can maybe start off with 250 microgram a day, see how that does. And really never want to go about 1 milligram per day. Never want to go above 1 milligram per day. That's overdoing it when it methyltrianolone. It's so strong, such a powerful steroid that you only need that little bit. Women shouldn't use the steroid at all. It's not fit for women. It's really only a man's steroid. It definitely has a lot of good effects, a lot of the same effects as Trenbolone, but just much stronger, way more toxic on your body as well. It's a good one to maybe try once or twice. If you're already a fan of Trenbolone and you've done well on it, maybe methyltrenbolone for good cutter might be something you might want to look into. And very hard to come by, not a very common steroid. You're rarely going to see a local source really have legit oral Trenbolone. Most likely than not, you're going to have to find it from one of these Eastern European labs that really cater to athletes and make everything under the sun and do it in a good, nice, clean facilities. So definitely Geneza Pharma methyltrianolone is the product. And look, if you end up only doing about 500 micrograms per day, I mean, just a couple of packs, man, a couple hundred tabs, and you're good to go. Not a very expensive cycle at all. And you could back it up with something else. I wouldn't throw another oral on top of it. Now, Steve is just saying Turinabol and Dianabol. That's a good stack. I've recommended that to guys before. I've said, look, man, instead of doing 30 milligrams of Debo, 20 milligrams, 40 milligrams of Debo, just like cut the Debo down, leave it at 10 milligrams, and then make up the rest of it with Turinabol. To 10, 20, 30 milligrams of Turinabol on top of that, those 10 mgs of Debo, and you're good to go. No need to go any further than that. Now, when it comes to oral Trenbolone, I wouldn't throw anything else on top of that. I wouldn't fuck with anything else on top of oral Trenbolone. If you're gonna do that, if that's the path you're taking, yeah. Granted, if you want to maybe do an injectable with it, a little bit of EQ, a little bit of test to go along with that oral trend, maybe, small amounts. But this one, you really want to treat it with care. Very, very, very potent, very toxic, and don't overdo it. Methyl Trenbolone, as if regular Trenbolone wasn't enough. What do you think, Steve?
Well, the next one, Geneza Pharmaceutical has some really cool orals. One of them they have is Superdrol. Superdrol is a hard one to find. A lot of sources don't carry Superdrol. And Superdrol, the misconception behind Superdrol is people think it's a pro-hormone. And I think one of the reasons that misconception is around is because a decade ago, you could go online and you could buy some designer steroids, which were Superdrol clones. You could buy them online with a credit card. Well, since then, banks have caught up to the situation and they said, hey, wait a minute, we're not going to let you buy something like this online with a credit card. We don't want to be associated with that. Banks don't want anything to do with this stuff, right? Because this stuff is serious business. This stuff has major side effects. So nowadays, you can't get these designer steroids online like you used to. So Superdrol is provided by Geneza Pharmaceuticals. And the thing about Superdrol, which separates it from really any oral steroid that I personally use, is let's say you're stuck. You can bench 300 pounds and you've been stuck at 300 pounds. You keep busting your ass in the gym. You're doing everything you can. You're eating well. You're sleeping good, but you can't break that plateau, right? So you get to 300, then you drop back down to 280, 285, 290. Then you get back to 300. You're able to do three reps, because I would never recommend max outs. Okay. Unless you compete, don't go and max out at the gym and try to do one rep. No. So you do 300 pounds for 3 reps, but you can't get over 300 for 3 reps, right? You get on Superdrol at 10 or 20 milligrams a day. That's all you need. Within a week, you will smash that plateau when it comes to strength. Also, it doesn't aromatize into estrogen, so you're not going to get the bloat that you would on another oral. It is extremely toxic, so you want to make sure you run your support supplements with it. You need a liver support supplement, obviously. It's not something you want to run longer than 4 weeks, even 3 weeks in some cases. And as you get deep into the cycle, you'll notice some lethargy and some fatigue on it because it's so powerful and frankly, really, really toxic. But if you run it correctly, you can cycle it on and do what I always recommend and cycle off. And you won't have any long-term health ramifications from it. But it's a great steroid if you want to break a plateau. If you want to break a plateau in something cheap, the price of a car wash, you can buy a packet of this stuff from Geneza and you can smash your PRs. So that's why Superdrol, it's a very respected oral steroid and very misunderstood. So I hope that makes sense to you guys. Rick, what else you got?
Superdrol is one of those steroids that will lend itself to help you either bulking or cutting, depending on what you're doing. Your diet will determine how it's going to work for you. It's great at cutting. It's great to add in with other stuff as a cutter, as long as your diet and everything is proper. You'll do great on it. Uh, it's also very strong for bulking as long as you eat enough on it, because you have to eat enough on Superdrol to really see those top gains on it. So very good steroid on, and like Steve said, is not commonly found. It's actually one of those more elusive steroids, and I think it kind of should they kind of should be, Steve. These steroids we talked about today, the Cheque Drops, the 1-methyl testosterone, the methyl Trenbolone, the Superdrols. Maybe these aren't steroids that any gym guy should just be dispensing out to people. These should be some of those top tier compounds for guys that know what the fuck they're doing. Guys that have been using steroids for a while, know their body, are taking the right precautions. So at least taking liver support, Entogard, using it properly. The Entogard with the meals, the juice on some of those spaces when their stomach is empty, plenty of liquid. I mean, really, and not missing any workouts, taking reps to failure, really getting their meals in, listening to their body and how it's reacting and making adjustments as as things progress. I mean, yeah, they should be kind of hard to find compounds. They should be compounds that are only had by some of these really top level, top tier sources, to use that word again. And yeah, I kind of, as we were doing the podcast, I'm thinking about it like, wow, this stuff is not really available to newbies. And if there's a local gym guy claiming he has it, chances are he's just relabeling some T-ball or something else he's got in stock that he can't get rid of, and telling you it's, you're getting methyl 1 test and you're really not, or you're getting something you're probably not getting. But you go to one of these very well-known, well-established Eastern European sources and brands, I should say, that are just very well-established, reputation, holograms, tests published online, that level of operation, you're sure to find Superdrol, methyl 1 test, Cheque Drops, methyl Trenbolone, legit ancillaries, legitimate ancillary. So you have a side effect, there's something not quite right. When you start taking your ancillary, the shit starts working. Like you realize, okay, I'm taking some Novadex, itchiness went away. Taking some Aromasin, water is starting to flush out a little bit. Like you're not sitting there having side effects and then cracking open something that's not dealing with the side effects properly, and then you don't know what you got and what's going on and what your next move should be. You could think that this Novadex, you could think that the tamoxifen or the Aromasin, it's not working for you, when in reality it's just bunk. You just got something bunk or heavily underdosed, quite underdosed, and you can't put two and two together. So all around, I think good podcast to some of these topics. And just guys, do it very responsibly. So we ask every one of you out there, make sure you check with your doctor about anything you do with your health, and any compounds, any drugs you want to take. Go there first. Check with your doctor. Check your local laws, and very responsible in this lifestyle. We all need to take very good care when we engage in this lifestyle.
Yes, sir. All right, bud. So we're done. We're good to go.
All right. So I guess that's it for us today, right? Have a good one, Steve. Have a good one, guys.
Guys, this is the required legal disclaimer. We are only sharing our experience from years of steroid use. We are not doctors, and none of what we say should be regarded as medical advice. Always check with your doctor before taking any drugs or starting any training program.